to present this masterclass to you. So we are really hoping that by the end of this session, you will be understanding what is expected of you with regards to the CPD requirements, the CPD essentials, how to learn, compliance, and archives. And we will also have a few highlights that we will go through. So the main purpose for the masterclass is to make sure that you understand what we mean by annual declarations, we mean by designations, competency standards, domains, and competencies. We will also take you through the frequently asked questions, what constitutes a good CPD activity, and also what learning activities you can use for your CPD. So let's take a moment here to think about it. What are the CPD requirements? What does council expect of me as a pharmacist? What is it that I need to know? What is it that I need to learn? And what is it that I need to do in order to comply with the CPD requirements? Compliance requirements. So the South African Pharmacy Council requires of you to on or before by the 1st of February of each year to complete your annual declaration. So this is what is required of each and every registered pharmacist, regardless of what designation you're going to make yourself be. But if you do not do that, council will auto-designate you as practicing, and up until such time that you then complete the annual declaration, you will be required to then complete 6 CPD activities. So all practicing pharmacists are required to complete 6 CPD activities, and this will need to be done on the CPD system. The CPD system is found on the SAPC website or the SAPC Registration App. We will go into details about the app later on, but these are the 2 places where you will be able to access the CPD system. And as I've said, no manual submissions are allowed. Maintaining an electronic portfolio is required of you, but please do not upload your evidence on the CPD system. Council does require of you to save somewhere all the evidence that you gather as and when you learn, but please do not upload it. It's not a requirement for you to do so. The annual declaration. The annual declaration is what you as a pharmacist need to do. So what you do is you log on the CPD, on the Pharmacy Council, either on the website or on the registration app, and then you go through the annual declaration. It's a set of competency standards that you go through and you choose those that are applicable to you. So if you would like to designate yourself as a practicing pharmacist, there are 2 options for you, which is I do this most of the time, or I do this some of the time. So you choose either depending on how often you perform that particular act. And if you would like to designate yourself as a non-practicing pharmacist, you will then choose I never do this. If you never do any of the acts pertaining to the scope of practice of a pharmacist, then the system will ask you you have designated yourself as a non-practicing pharmacist. Do you agree or disagree? And if you feel that there's something wrong, you disagree, then it takes you back. If you agree, then the system will designate you as a non-practicing pharmacist, and you will not be able to amend that designation. For you to be able to do so, you will need to apply to the Pharmacy Council, and we will check on our side the requirements, and we can be able to then reset your designation status. But if you have designated yourself as practicing, and then comes a time wherein you no longer desire to practice, you can then go on the CPD system and then update your annual declaration, and you can change it to non-practicing. How designation works is that a practicing pharmacist is a registered pharmacist who is providing one or more of the services or performing one or more of the acts related to the scope of practice of a pharmacist, and as a result is required to comply with the CPD requirements. But if you then want to designate yourself as a non-practicing pharmacist, be then sure that you do not provide any of the services or the acts pertaining to the scope of practice of a pharmacist. Because if you do, then you need to make sure that you designate yourself as practicing, and then you conform to the requirements. So we're going to take a few seconds here to familiarize ourselves with the CPD essentials. So where you need to find the competency framework is that you will be able to find it in the CPD guidance document, and you will also find it in the competency standards that were published in 2018. So the terms here that you need to familiarize yourself with are domain, competency standard, and behavioral statement. So what the competency standards are composed of is they're composed of domains, and each domain has an introduction that is explaining which pharmacist in particular is required to then comply with that particular domain. It tells us who does the domain apply to, and if you are interested in doing that domain, even though it does not apply to your current practice, by all means, please do so, but familiarize yourself with its competencies and behavioral statements. The behavioral statements are divided into 3 levels, which is the entry level, intermediate practice, and advanced practice. And by all means, this has nothing to do with the number of years that you have qualified as a pharmacist, but it has everything to do with the number of years that you have been practicing that particular competency that you are required to be competent in. So if you are new in that particular domain, then you can choose entry level, or if it's intermediate, you can choose intermediate. But if it's something that you've been doing for a while, then you can choose advanced practice, because then the behavioral statements there do differ, and what is expected of you differs according to your level. The domains, we do have 6 domains. We have the public health domain, we have the safe and rational use of medicines and medical devices, we have the supply of medicines and medical devices, organization and management skills, professional and personal practice, and then the last one is education, critical analysis, and research. It is very important for you to familiarize yourself with these domains before you can complete your CPD activities. You'll find this on the CPD system. There is where it shows competency standards. You can go through them from there, or you can find them in the guidance documents, or you can also find them in the competency standard board notice as published in 2018 by Council. So we will just go through this one domain. It's the public health domain, which is domain number 1. And this domain, it applies to all the pharmacists whose practice includes promotion of health and wellness through the provision of health information and education to the public and other members of the healthcare team. So in order for you to know what competencies you are then required to be competent in is the promotion of health and wellness, medicine information, professional and health advocacy, health economics, epidemic and disaster management, as well as primary health care. So it has, here we have just teased out the behavioral statements in level 1, which are provide advice on health promotion, provide advice on disease prevention and control, provide advice on health lifestyles, and participate in public health campaigns. But if you are intermediate or you are advanced, then your behavioral statements will be different. We do have what we call a personal development plan in the guidance document. So if you need to then plan what CPD activities you would like to do for the year, you can use that plan as your guidance. It will be able to guide you which domains do apply to you or which domains are just of your interest. Then you can be able to select which ones you are going to do and how you are going to learn. We have been receiving questions since the publication of the CPD regulations. We just selected a few that are relevant for tonight. So we do get questions where pharmacists are asking if they are really required to comply with the CPD requirements, even though they don't, they are not in the front line, they don't work directly with patients, they don't provide clinical care to anyone. So they do feel as a result, then they shouldn't be compelled to comply with the CPD requirements. But unfortunately, if you are a pharmacist and you are practicing, then you are required to comply with the CPD requirements. We do have where people are saying, but I only develop regulations. I never get to see patients. I only do research in drug interactions and drug usages. Or I'm a pharmacist, but I'm a trainer. I train pharmacists, I train pharmacy students, I train pharmacy support personnel. Well, yes, you are required to comply with the CPD requirements because these requirements are there in order to enable us to educate ourselves, to keep abreast with all the new information, and to make sure that we uplift the dignity of the profession. The fact here is that pharmacy practice is not restricted to provision of direct clinical care. It includes working in a direct non-clinical relationship with clients or working in management, administration, education, research, advisory, regulatory, policy development roles, and any other roles that impact on the safe, effective delivery of services in the profession. And so as a pharmacist, you are then required to comply with the CPD requirements so that we can ensure the safe, effective delivery of pharmaceutical services. What you need to do, your only obligation is to choose CPD activities that are relevant to your scope of practice or that interest you for personal development or just for interest, or in case you then in future want to go and work in the other different sectors. So how do I then learn? We do have different ways in which you can learn and complete your CPD activities. We will go through that shortly. But for now, I just want to go through the continuing professional development definition so that we can have a clear understanding. So CPD is the process by which registered persons maintain and enhance their competence throughout their professional careers. So as a pharmacist, we respect that you are qualified. We respect that you do have experience in your relevant sectors of practice. But what we are saying is let's enhance our competence. New things happen all the time. Then we also need to develop our knowledge and enhance it all the time. This CPD encompasses a range of activities, including continuing education and supplementary training, and it enables the registered person to develop their area of practice and demonstrate competence, which will then help uplift the dignity of this profession that we love so much. I did mention before that you are required to submit 6 CPD entries per year, and please do not attach your evidence. We do have 2 cycles for us to pick from. We have the 4-step cycle, which there are no limitations on this one. You can submit as many CPD activities as you would like, and nobody or nothing will stop you at that. But if you had submitted more than 6 CPDs, they will only count for the current year. They will not count towards the subsequent year or any other year. They only count for that particular year that you have entered them in. And in this 4-step CPD cycle, it does require prior planning before you can enter your CPD activity. And as I've said earlier on, you can use the personal development plan to guide you, or you can go through the cycle. It also guides you because it asks relevant questions. So you can use that when you do your planning. It allows for submission once all the steps are completed. So you can enter your information starting at any point of the steps, but it will not allow you to submit if you did not complete all the steps. And then we have the 2-step cycle, which is a shortcut, but this one is limited to only 3 CPD activities per year. The system will not allow you to enter any other CPD activities once you have entered 3 using the 2-step cycle. You can use after that the 4-step cycle, but you will not be allowed to enter more than 3 using the 2-step cycle. It does not require any prior planning, because it could be something that you realize mid-training that, yes, I didn't know this particular thing, but now I know. So you didn't reflect on it. You didn't plan how you were going to learn it, and here you are and you have learned it. So all you will do in this one, then you will go and do your evaluation and the implementation step. So the 4-step cycle is this 4. It's the reflection step, the planning, the evaluation, and the implementation step. This is the cycle that was there all the time. People who have been tutors before, I'm sure you are familiar with this one. And then Council has recently then introduced the 2-step cycle, which is just the evaluation and the implementation step. And this one is a quick one. So what constitutes a good CPD activity? A good CPD activity should have a learning title, and please ensure that your learning title is appropriate and relevant for the particular domain you would have chosen. So it shouldn't be just a copy and paste of the domain or the competency standard or the behavioral standard. It should be something that you design but relevant to the domain you have chosen. Your CPD activity should have a learning need. This is where you then asking yourself, what knowledge gaps, what skills gaps do I need to fill? What is it that I feel I need to enhance my knowledge with? It should also have a learning method, which is where you ask yourself, how am I going to learn? I want to learn this, but how am I going to learn it? For example, you could be wanting to learn how to inject vaccines, how to inoculate people. Then you ask yourself, how am I then going to learn? So we do have 3 types of learning methods or learning activities. There is what we call the non-measurable learning activities, which are the self-study, where you then read a book or you read an article or you talk to a colleague or you find other ways of educating yourself, or it's a case study that you go through, or you attend a conference or a masterclass like this one, and then you learn and you use that as your CPD activity. Or it could be a measurable activity wherein you attend a short course which has a duration of less than 6 months, and you feel I have actually learned, or you plan it prior to say, I'm going to need to learn 1, 2, 3, but then I will then enroll myself for a certain course. Then you can do that. Or you review someone's article, or you are invited to be a guest speaker. You prepare for that speech. You can use that as a learning activity. Or it could be a structured method wherein you enroll yourself for diploma or postgraduate studies, could be anything that is has the duration of 7 months or more. Then you can use that to enter your CPD activities. And we do receive a lot of people do ask, if I have enrolled myself for a postgraduate study or for a diploma or another degree, can I use that on more than one occasion? Can I enter more than one CPD activity using the same course? Yes, you can do that. And as a pharmacist, you are allowed to enter all your CPD activities using one domain. We do not oblige you to only enter from CPDs using one domain at a time. You can select the one domain and use all that for your 6 CPD activities. It's all up to you, and it also depends on what you have enrolled yourself in or what you are learning. How relevant is it to what you really want to learn. So as long as it is relevant to you, it's applicable to the domain you have chosen, then it's all systems go with us. But council does not oblige you to register yourself for any courses. It depends on if that particular course does as what you require in order to fill your knowledge gaps, then you can enroll yourself for it. And lastly, a good CPD should have a learning outcome. What is it that I have learned from this particular activities? How did it improve my knowledge skills? Did it fill in the gaps that I had or not? Then you will know that you have done a good CPD activity. I've explained this in the previous slide, but we will just go through it again just to make sure that we all understand. So learning activities, you can use anything as your learning activity as long as it fills your knowledge gaps, as long as it enhances your skills, then you can by all means use that. And what you learn, you can then use that as your evidence. So if you needed to teach people something and then you developed a course, you can use the course material that you have developed as your evidence. You can use the certificates of graduation or the certificate of the course as your evidence. You can use the articles that you read as your evidence. If you have attended a training and do have the attendance register to say, I have attended this particular training, you can use that. If you developed policies or you developed regulations, you can use that as your evidence. So the evidence that you're going to keep in your portfolio of evidence needs to be current. So if it's for the year 2021, you cannot use evidence that was acquired in the previous years. It has to be evidence that was acquired in that particular year. It has to be valid and relevant for the domain that you have chosen. And please do not upload the evidence on the CPD system. So the CPD entries that you're going to enter needs to relate to what you have learned during the current year. And that, as I've said, evidence can be any document that you have acquired in the learning process. And most importantly, please do not upload your evidence on the CPD system. Under compliance and archives. So what happens is the CPD activities, the due date was the 31st of December of 2020. It's the 31st of December for each year, but Council has given us a grace period, which is ending on the 30th of April. So in order for us to avoid the confusion, for persons who were already compliant with their CPD requirements by the 31st of December of 2020, we have archived all your CPD activities that you had entered in order to create way then for the CPD activities that you are going to enter for 2021 and to avoid confusion. So those CPD activities are there under archives, and please do not restore those. You do have allowance to restore if you had archived something in error, but please do not restore your 2020 CPD activities because they do count. It shows us here. It also shows you if you are logged in and you go under annual declarations. It shows you that for the year 2020, you have entered a total of this many activities, but they were archived. So they are there. Also, on the administration side, we also see this. So we are able to know that you do comply with the requirements. And then for those that did not comply with their requirements by the 31st of December of 2020, you are then given the grace period, which is ending on the 30th of April of 2021. So if by then you only had entered 6 CPD entries, we will archive those and we will count them towards your compliance for the year 2020. But if by for some reason you did more CPD activities by then, you have done 10 and you didn't do anything for 2020, we will take 6 and count them towards 2020, and the other 4 will be your start for 2021. So they will all count and they will all be divided accordingly to make sure that you do comply. The highlights, the cancel system does not work on CPD points. So please, we know that a lot of statutory bodies related to healthcare professionals that are governing healthcare professionals are using CPD points, but the South African Pharmacy Council had opted not to use that. The reason being, as much as you can attend a training, what council requires of you is how then have you applied that training, how then is it applicable to you as a pharmacist, and we need for you to then reflect what you have learned. Also, council does not allow for you to then request any third party to complete your CPD entries for you. This is prohibited. It's a punishable break of the professional conduct and the code of conduct, and our professional conduct unit is on the lookout for this and punishes those that does that. Your CPD activities will not be assessed for competence. At the moment, all CPD activities for pharmacists are being assessed only for compliance. So what we do is to make sure that you have completed your annual declaration and you have complied with by entering 6 CPD activities. No practicing pharmacists should be found in the pharmacy. The reason for this is that if you are a non-practicing pharmacist, you are then saying that you do not perform any of the acts pertaining to the scope of practice of a pharmacist. And for that reason is why then council does not oblige you to comply with the CPD requirement. So as a result, you cannot then practice. Our inspectors of council go out and they are on the lookout for this, and it is a punishable offense as well. So we encourage you to be lifelong learners. We encourage lifelong learning to enhance your knowledge, skills, and to also uplift the dignity of the profession. Council has launched the registration app. It is available on the apps on the Play Store. It's available on iOS. It's available on Huawei App Gallery, and it's named SAPC Registration. You will find it there. Please install it. The most important reason why you need to install it is that it is developed for your own convenience. It is developed to make sure that you have your digital registration card accessible to you at any point on time. You have the CPD system available to you at any point in time. You have the ability to amend your personal details using this app. So you don't have to then log in on the SAPC website in order for you to do so. So please, I urge all of you to upload pictures, beautiful identity document size pictures on this app to ensure that your digital registration card is then visible and can easily be identified. I'm going to go through the following few questions with you, and then after that, I will open the floor for discussion and questions. We did receive questions from all of you, most of you, when you enrolled to come for this masterclass, but some of them we're not going to address them in here because they are addressed in the presentation, and also we will put some of them as part of the frequently asked questions. So we have one here that is asking, if I am registered in July, do I still have to complete 6 entries for the year? So if I became a pharmacist, or if I am a registered pharmacist, but I was non-practicing, and then in July I say now I want to be practicing, or I only get registered on the 1st of July, then what happens to me? Am I still required to complete all the 6 CPD entries for the year? And the answer here is no. The CPD activities are prorated. So as a result, your CPD activities here will be reduced. If we say 6 CPD activities per year, we are then saying 1 CPD for every 2 months. So if you begin on the 1st of July, you will then be required to only complete 3 CPD activities for that particular year. If I develop policies and provide training, can this be considered as CPD? They will be considered as CPD, but you need to then enter them on the CPD system. So you can't send to us that you have developed the policies. You need to log in on the system and enter your CPD activities. Is CPD compulsory for pharmacist assistants? It is not yet compulsory for pharmacist assistants because at the moment, the South African Pharmacy Council is still drafting the competency standards for pharmacist support personnel. And these standards, please be on the lookout for them. They will be published for comments soon because they are going to cancel in May. So after that, they will be published for comment. Please make sure that you comment. And once council has received your comments, they will discuss the comments, and then they will then enhance the competency standards using your comments. And then after that, the competency standards for pharmacy support personnel will then be published for implementation. That will then be when council can then release a board notice that will then require pharmacist assistants to comply with CPD requirements. But at the moment, it's not compulsory. They can go into the system just to familiarize themselves with the system and enter CPD activities. The system does allow for that, but it's not mandatory for them. Must I complete 6 entries if I have been unemployed for the last year? If you have been unemployed for the last year, but you did not designate yourself as non-practicing, you are then obliged to comply with the CPD requirements. Because council had then auto-designated you as a practicing pharmacist. Now there's no longer a chance to amend the 2020 annual declaration because that's done, it has passed. So unfortunately, you will then have to comply with the CPD requirements. What is the process to apply for extension or condonation of CPD requirements due to ill health? Please familiarize yourself with the CPD guidance document. In it, there is provision for deferment. Deferment is where you can apply to council and give them your reasons why you request to be pardoned for a particular period of time not to comply with the CPD requirements. Council will then discuss your request and they will respond to you and let you know for how long you cannot comply with the CPD requirements. But the maximum that a person can be allowed to defer their CPD requirements according to the CPD regulations is 12 months. If you then require to be deferred for periods longer than that, then by all means, please designate yourself as non-practicing and also then take a break from practicing. Thank you so much for availing yourself for this training. We really appreciate your time. I will now open the floor then for questions.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks. And you, Timelo, please go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to find out, since when we're not allowed to upload our evidence, for how long should I keep this evidence?
We don't have a specified period, but I think 5 years is a good time to keep any document before you distract it. What I can tell you is at the moment, council does not require for that evidence at all. We're not even doing ad hoc requests for the evidence, but it is a requirement according to the CPD regulations for the evidence to be kept.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Are there any questions, clarity, suggestions, anything you would like to discuss?
Hi, Etaboho. Hi, Raisibe. Witsoko here. I want to find out if
yes,
I
please
didn't do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If I didn't submit any CPD points for 2020, so I'm going to attempt to do it now in the next 15 days. So can I still use the evidence I gathered from 2020 to upload it and to upload it into the 2021 declaration or 2020 declaration? Because I think I was stuck
If
there.
you have not, yes, if you have not completed your CPD activities for 2020, you can use what you have learned in 2020 for that. It is okay. It's still relevant and it's for that particular year.
And do I download it under 2020 or 2021 annual declaration?
You will need to do an annual declaration for 2020 in order for the system to allow you to go through, and your CPD activities will count under the 2021. So you will need to do now an annual declaration for 2021. The system will allow you to enter your CPD activities, and it will count them under 2021 because of the date.
Yes.
But what council will do on the 30th of April is we will then count 6 of those towards your 2020 compliance.
Okay. So meaning we can only use the 4-step approach.
No, you still have allowance to do 3 of the 2-step ones, the 2-step cycle. Lorraine, please ask your question.
Thanks, Ms. Rasibe. I just wanted to find out regarding the peer review. I tried to access some of my peers who nominated me as their peer reviewer, and I couldn't click on their entries at all. How does that work?
How it works is that after they have chosen you as their peer, they need to then go into their system and activate you. So it's possible that they didn't activate you. That would be the reason that you are unable to access their entries.
They did receive an SMS, and they did afterwards confirm to me that they did activate me, but still for some reason I couldn't click on their entries. So I'm not sure whether it's because I haven't done any of my own. I just wanted to have some clarity on that.
It can be. Have you done your annual declaration already for the year?
Yes.
Because then it shouldn't prohibit you for that reason. Please give us your P number and then we will check what's happening on the system.
Okay, sure. Do you want me to do this now, or should I contact you privately via email?
You can contact us privately. It's okay.
All right. I'll just look for your details. Where can I find your email address?
We will give it to you in the chat box.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. I see a hand from Connie.
Hello.
And then after that.
Yes, I submitted, I think, 8 different things last year, and I haven't had any feedback as to whether they're acceptable or what's going on. How do I find out if they're acceptable or there's a problem?
There is no problem, sir. The reason you didn't get any feedback yet is because we have not yet sent out SMSs to the people that already complies, but also the fact that we are not assessing your CPD activities for compliance is why then you did not receive feedback. We will send feedback to all those that complies after the 30th of April. But we do thank you very much for complying.
Okay, thank you.
Hanneke, please ask your question.
I wanted to ask, if one, for example, reads a newsletter, some kind of journal article or something that may just take, say, half an hour, does that carry the same weight as a CPD activity as, for example, doing an online course, which may take one a couple of hours to do?
Well, as I've said, we are not using CPD points, so we are not weighing what you have learned according to how long you have done it. But the system does have where you then choose how long that particular training or that particular learning activity took you. So there is a way of how we find out, but we do not then segregate the CPD activities using that.
Okay, so one could simply take the easy way out and just submit 6 very short CPD activities.
That is correct. The point here is, as a pharmacist, we expect you to then gauge what knowledge gaps you have. So if what you use is what you feel will then enhance your skills, will enhance your knowledge, then that's okay with us.
Thank you.
Nicholas, please ask your question.
Oh, good evening, Rasiba. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was actually very well presented. You've answered a lot of my questions. So first of all, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
The one thing I do have to ask is, and it's following the other two previous pharmacist questions, I think what some of us are concerned with is we are going to upload. Yes, you are trusting us to make sure that we upload quality CPD information. The question is, how do we want to know that, A, what we have uploaded, is it of quality? Is it acceptable? And will you in the future have some sort of stat to benchmark, I guess, or are you implicitly going to trust us to make sure that what we've uploaded is quality and it is therefore relevant? And, you know, will there therefore be like spot checks, almost like an inspector, which I'm assuming there might just be that.
Thank you very much. We have actually done the spot checks with those that have entered many entries, because we had somebody who entered 44 entries, for example, and we went through those entries just to make sure that there are no duplication and they didn't just enter Hohaikis there. And you know, so
okay, well, that
we yes, so but it's also a pipeline plan of council that with time, once we are all familiar with the system, we are all familiar with the requirements, and we all know what we are doing, then they might introduce assessment for compliance, but it's not anytime soon.
Is there any chance I can contact you privately in order to assist with that or provide advice? I'll explain more in the email, but it is personally of interest to me, and also I think for a lot of other pharmacists, to make sure that they're doing all the work and then someone else does less of the work, but it's okay. I think, you know, we want to make sure we're all on the same page and have some way eventually to tick the boxes and go, well done. Like peer reviews, like by your peers. There's a lot of peers that can actually review what I do, but thankfully a lot of them will actually be quite critical of what I do, and vice versa. They're not going to just tick it and go, sweet, well done. You know, they actually are going to be they're academic and they're based mostly in industry. So because they follow an evidence-based approach to what they do, so do I. That would apply for me, but some retail or hospital pharmacists might not have that. What can we do for them is the question.
We will appreciate your input and suggestions. Now we'll contact you and then give you our contact details of how we can then communicate further. We really appreciate your input, sir.
Yeah, there's quite a few interesting international organizations, and it's pretty much due to COVID itself. So I'll be very short. And one of them is actually a good example. They are tied to the World Health Organization, and they're called FIP. In other words, the Federation of International Pharmacists. So I don't see the SA Council aligned with them on their site, according to what I see on their website. However, my suggestion to all those pharmacists who are listening, go and have a look at what they do. The registration is expensive. I'm not even registered, but they've got some free videos of some stuff that is relevant to our CPD too.
We will do that. We usually do benchmark with them, but we will go further into it and we will communicate with you. Then you can give us
Well,
more
that's very
advice.
comforting. I must be honest, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, man. Cheers.
Thank you. Kone, I see your hand is up.
Yes, there was one other little point. A lot of pharmacy firms offer webinars which they say count for CPD points. Are those acceptable to the council? You know what I'm talking about. A lot of the pharmacy firms, maybe 2 or 3 a month, offer webinars.
As I've said, council does not work on a CPD point system, and also does not oblige you to register for any courses. But if the course is relevant to what you would like to learn, then by all means, please do register for it. It would be relevant for you, but it's not mandatory. And also because council does accredit providers of courses and does accredit courses, we actually do have a list of providers on our website. So if you would like to see if there are those that we have accredited, you will find them on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Azra, I see your mic is on. Are there any further questions, suggestions, or anything you would like to discuss with us? Thank you very much. In the absence of suggestions, questions, and any further discussions, we would like to adjourn the masterclass. Thank you very, very much for availing yourself to us. We really hope that you have learned. Thank you.